Folks might be feeling good about Anna, but Anna Manley has a Pierre Poilievre problem. She says Pierre Poilievre cares about Cape Bretoners, and despite no photos of him on her very active Facebook page, at least that I could find, she says he's been here 3 times. So let's take her word for it. She says twice during his leadership bid and once afterwards, so be it. But in Trenton on Wednesday, he called up Alan McMaster to the stage as his sole candidate in Cape Breton, as though he forgot they have another one named Anna.
That we have Nova Scotia's former finance minister, Alan McMaster, as our candidate in Cape Breton. Cape Breton.
So, hey, Anna, you're putting in the work. You might need to remind Pierre that you're still here racking up miles on your Fitbit. During our Center 200 debate, Anna said that Poilievre came to community organizations and soup kitchens here in Cape Breton and met with builders, folks with tools hanging out of their pockets, and he met with everyone who wanted to meet with him until the line was done.
Pierre Poilievre cares about Cape Bretoners. He has been here 3 times. He came here twice during the leadership. He came here once after that to meet with Cape Bretoners. He came to community organizations, soup kitchens.
But in her Hey Anna series, where a team member asks her a question, she also talks about Pierre's commitment to talking to everyone at his appearances. But this time, the location she mentions is out in Benyon at the Lakes Golf Club and Resort.
When he came here to Cape Breton, he was outside in the cold at the lakes after the event, and he talked to everybody.
A great business, no doubt, in a beautiful area out near the yacht club. But I can't help but think it's also the kind of place you'd expect someone like Pierre Poilievre to actually put most of his attention. I don't suppose he ate at Loaves and Fishes with Father Maroon and talked about equalization fairness or how to get our federal funding applied locally to get control of our taxes and create a housing boom. Now, did he? But during our debate, Anna did a bunch of things. She said Houston can do whatever he wants with our equalization funding, and she praised him on health care.
The role of the federal government in the equalization program is to distribute the funds to the province, and the province, the duly elected province or government, Tim Houston, of course, can do with those funds what they will. And if you don't like it, you can, of course, re-elect a different government. But I actually think that the provincial government's doing an excellent job spending more money on health care in Cape Breton in particular.
And she also suggested that Cape Breton doesn't need any more government funding.
Okay, we don't need more government money in Cape Breton.
Pay attention to her words. Maybe it's because in her day-to-day legal practice or at Conservative Party meetings, she's used to having not so much elbows up, but instead rubbing elbows with folks who have enough money to get by and often a little bit more stuffed in the mattress. But recent news suggests that all of Nova Scotia, including our Conservative Premier Tim Houston, who has his Liberal moments, also has a Pierre Poilievre problem. This week, Poilievre showed up in Trenton, Nova Scotia, but not in Cape Breton, where he cares so much about us. Anna's fighting it out in a very red riding, even redder since the boundary change, and he left her to fend for herself. And then the CBC gave us another reminder of why Pierre and Anna want to defund them when they wrote this headline. Tensions with Nova Scotia Premier simmered as Poilievre made his sole stop in the province. And then they indicated, sources say a top Conservative advisor reprimanded Houston's team last year. I quote, Poilievre's sole campaign trip to Nova Scotia ended without meeting Premier Tim Houston, who did not attend Poilievre's Trenton, Nova Scotia rally just minutes from Houston's own provincial riding. While Houston had previously said he would stay out of the federal campaign, sources say there's been tension between the two leaders for months. During last year's provincial election, Houston told reporters he would not be inviting Poilievre to campaign with him, saying he's not a member of any federal party. If that's not enough, the article continues with the following, and I quote, 4 provincial sources, who CBC News is not naming because they weren't authorized to discuss internal party matters, told CBC News that soon after, Houston's staff received a phone call from Conservative National Campaign Director Jenny Byrne. And the sources claim that Byrne told Houston's team that if Poilievre went on to become Prime Minister, they would not lift a finger to help the provincial party. Listen, we all have a Poilievre problem. But now we know that Nova Scotia, Tim Houston, and Anna Manley have a Poilievre problem too. He doesn't like our red Tory premier, and the feeling is mutual. He's running a campaign, but letting Anna fend for herself in the red tide of a very red riding. And he supposedly cares about Cape Breton, but the touching event that Anna describes was at a golf club and a resort with no photos apparently taken, at least not promoted. And they won't do anything about equalization, suggesting they're not so much a buddy anymore. Tim Houston can do whatever he wants. And Anna tells us we don't need any government money in Cape Breton, that we're resilient and we can figure it out ourselves. And then she skips out on our local CBC interviews, where some of these views might have been discussed and worked through under the scrutiny of the public eye, us, the voters. Well, that could have happened only if Pierre Poilievre had let her talk to the big bad wolves, the frightening media personalities like Steve Sutherland and Wendy Bergfeld. Are you starting to see the picture here? Okay, I get it. You don't want a liberal candidate? You don't want to support Mike Kelloway? No worries. Bring the vote you were thinking of casting for Anna to me. Vote for someone who does want resources for this community and doesn't have someone like Poilievre or Carney telling me what I can or can't do or what I can or can't say. You want a pipeline? No problem. We'll build one without destroying the environment. You want to stop crime? No problem. We need inpatient addiction services and a new facility for healthcare to be delivered here in Cape Breton, and we need to stop the cycle of ineffective release conditions for people whose lives are spiraling out of control, who are arrested and have no realistic chance to suddenly start walking the line with the nonsensical conditions imposed on them, setting them up for failure to stack charges on top of charges on top of charges. Do you want to make sure we get some equalization flowing here to lower our property taxes, to start a housing boom that creates real jobs and real affordability? Then vote for me. Bring your conservative vote to the sensible political center, to a common sense Cape Bretoner, not a drone for Poilievre. Now, just one last thing. If red and blue don't want to support getting us more of our equalization funding, CARE wants to do what?
That's the carrot, but there's also going to be a stick. Municipalities will be required to increase the number of permits they grant every year by 15%, and if they don't, I will cut back on the federal money that the government sends them from Ottawa.
Okay, they'll leave us with the high property tax rates that prevent housing development from happening here, but then they'll threaten us with pulling more federal funding if we don't build quickly enough. How about you threaten pulling Tim Houston's federal funding from the capital region if he doesn't fund our property tax reduction? Vote smart, forget about Trump, and remember where you live.
Action figures in a row, but only one's got guts to go to Ottawa with passion and solutions mine. Joe Ward knows what's on the line.
To make history, you want to tip this upside down and, let these guys know that it's not all about their party leaders? Vote for me.